you love, covering all things professional wrestling. A show by members of the Busted Open Nation. Welcome to the Nation's Corner. Here are your hosts, the Nation's Corner crew.
Good evening, Nation's Corner family, friends, and fans. It is just after 7 p.m. on a Saturday night, and you know what that means. We are all the way live. It's John in South Jersey here. Welcome to yet another edition of the Nation's Corner, and with me is my usual cast of unusual subjects. First and foremost, you know her, you love her, you click the link, and we all know you do. Debhausen, the great and powerful. What's up, Deb?
What's happening? It's a Saturday. It's a wrestling weekend, and I'm ready to go.
And from parts unknown tonight, we will not give away. No, the child is not drinking on air, sir. No, he's not. But he has a little.
He's got to go to sleep. It's past his bedtime.
Anyway. Right? All the way out in Long Island. I say in Long Island, not on Long Island.
It's on Long Island.
No, it isn't. GFY. Just GFY. All you people that want to tell me it's on Long Island. F you, I'm from Jersey. And anyway, Mongrovian Mike, and of course his.
You stop saying you're from Jersey. You step out your front door and you're in Philly. So stop.
I gotta cross the bridge.
I know you don't want
to admit
that you're really a Philly boy.
He has to cross the bridge.
But all the ECW shows and over the years, you're in Philly more. You're not a Jersey boy. You don't spend any time in Jersey. Most of your time you're building buildings in Philly. Come on.
Semantics.
He does a good job too. You drive down 95 with him, he'll point out every building he built.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do. Anyway, what are we doing tonight, guys?
I'm babysitting.
Yeah, I see that. Who's babysitting who? Who is babysitting who? Is a better question.
He's babysitting me.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
That's why the camera just zeroed in on him because he's the star.
He is the star. I love him. I love him so much. Go ahead.
We do.
So
we're going to talk about, besides, or try to talk about everything that went on this week in wrestling, because as usual, there is an absolute metric shit ton of stuff that went on. But more importantly, we're going to talk about AEW. Speaking of Philadelphia, right across the bridge from me at the Liacouras Center tomorrow, taking place the pay-per-view Dynasty. Right down there in beautiful center of Philadelphia. Temple University Liacouras Center. No comment. But we're going to talk about that. And Deb gets to go to Philly tomorrow. And I get to be a part of a absolute something I have been looking forward to since we first started talking about this and that. Deb is breaking her GCW cherry tomorrow, and I cannot wait. Deb and I and her boyfriend Seth and maybe some others, we're not sure yet.
If someone will respond to a message.
Well, that's part of the problem. We're not going to name names now. We may later, but not now. But yeah, Deb and I and Seth are going to be at Harrah's Casino in Chester, Pennsylvania. To see GCW presents the Philly special taking place tomorrow afternoon before Dynasty. So we will get our GCW fill and then come home and watch Dynasty. But before we get to all that, the week that was a week that was in pro wrestling.
And it was.
Yeah. I guess we'll get out of the way our thoughts on, and Deb, as usual, we know you don't watch SmackDown, but I'm sure you saw some of the clips, etc.
I caught up on a few clips, yeah.
Okay. Key points to me, obviously, we finally saw the debut, and what a debut and entrance for Rey Fenix, rightfully so. And I made the comment with last night watching their match, watching his match with one half of the NXT Tag Team Champions, Nathan Frazier. Somebody better check them guys because the throttle was stuck wide open. The speed and the tempo that both those guys worked was unbelievable. And good for Nathan Frazier to get that main roster kind of pop and in a big spotlight of his own. And him and Phoenix put on a hell of a match and a hell of a debut for Ray. Elder, what do you think?
I am just busy here hearing this kid mumbling behind me.
Well, maybe you could translate for him because his take's probably better than yours.
I have a lot of shit takes.
Yeah,
I hope I don't have to take a shit from his diaper, though.
Steven, if you understand my voice, hit him in the head with that toy. Please, just bash him in the head. No, he will though.
He's looking at you like he wants.
He's wonderful. He's wonderful.
Uncle John, you're gonna teach you all about that.
What were we talking about again?
Ray Phoenix.
The Ray Phoenix debut.
Okay, Ray Phoenix with the debut. The debut was great. I think people say that. I saw a couple of people say that they didn't think that Frazier was the right first opponent, but
there's a word for those people, and that word is wrong.
Yeah, they're wrong. I mean, you know what I think? Do people expect the same reaction and everything that Penta had? You know, like it's two different situations. Just because they're brothers doesn't mean that it's going to be the same.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I agree. With you. As soon as I start talking, he's going to act up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a Cody crybaby. What can I say?
Yeah.
But it was great, and we're gonna see these two for years. You know, Ray and his brother Penta, and I have zero miedo in their popularity and what they're gonna do with them. I have no fear at all.
Yes.
They're both.
Yeah.
I mean, Ray Phoenix is just. You know the lucha. You know how I am with lucha libre wrestling. I'm not too crazy all the time. Like sometimes it doesn't make sense. These are two guys. These are two luchadors that make sense. They're in.
Yeah.
They're in the same vein as Ray. You know, as Rey Mysterio. You know that quality where they know how to not just do a million moves, a million miles an hour. Every move means something.
Yeah.
And that's a very important thing to do, especially when you're doing a lot of the flippy stuff sometimes it looks more choreographed than a match.
Right.
They make it work, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes
and they had it,
you know, there's those times where, you know, you gotta no-sell some moves, but
you
know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they had an incredible run in AEW for, you know, I saw a lot of obviously
And I would
since
say
he debuted last night.
TNA too. I would say TNA too.
Yeah, TNA before AEW, yeah. But you know, since he debuted last night and it's the topic on everybody's tongue, you know, there's a lot of people that seem to have like this revisionist history that AEW never used them or whatever. Like they had an incredible run in AEW. It just kind of ran its course.
Whatever happened was behind the scenes. That's you know,
but
that's
they
between
were
them and their boss and
for
everything.
several years.
Everybody,
they were on top of AEW.
Everybody tries to make a big deal about why someone left WWE to here, or why they left AEW to there, or why they left TNA to here, or whatever.
There's a lot of revisionist history that goes around.
And at the end of the day, it's called business.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, it's not like Deb, you used to work at CVS. You hated that place. It's not like they hate this place and they're going to work at Walgreens. They you know, they love wrestling. And you knew that their dream was, since they were kids, was to be in WWE because that's all that existed back then too. pretty much.
Right.
Besides
Right.
the indies. So
yeah, like so if we equate it to our regular jobs,
anybody to be against them fulfilling their childhood dreams, you're an idiot.
Exactly.
You're an idiot.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
where
so
they
if we
wanted
equate it
to
to our
be.
regular jobs, like I know we've kind of brought this up before one time when Front Row was on the show, he brought this up. Like, okay, so I work at a hospital. If something happens that I wasn't happy with my job anymore, or even if I was happy but just felt like I wanted an opportunity to do something different, like if I go get a job at a different hospital, would I should everybody, like all my former coworkers, then like just despise me and hate me because I left to go to another job at a different hospital? Like that just doesn't make sense. But for whatever reason in wrestling and in sports, like that's for whatever reason, that's like the norm is if, in regular sports, if, a player plays for one team that you're a fan of, if they, get traded or go to another team, like all of a sudden all the fans just hate that person. And I've never been that way, even when I was bigger into sports. Hell, I even became a fan of a whole different other team because Marc-Andre Fleury went to the fucking Las Vegas Knights and left the Penguins. And now I'm a Las Vegas Knights fan, even though he traded them away like a season later.
Right. He went to play for a while.
I'm still a Knights fan because of him. And I'm still a Penguins fan. Like Penguins will always be my number one.
Well,
like
what
I've
the Penguins
fan since childhood.
On a quick side note, what the Penguins should do is sign Fleury to a one-day contract so he can retire as a Penguin.
Yes,
because he's playing his final games now for the Minnesota
that is necessary.
Wild.
That is absolutely necessary.
Yes,
but
anyway.
the point being is like, I've been a Pittsburgh Penguins fan my entire life. I saw Marc-Andre Fleury play for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins back, before when he played for them, before he got called up to Pittsburgh. I went to several games when he was playing, and I've always loved him as a player. He left the Penguins. I'm not going to hate him.
Right. Well, that's funny. We talk about this, and we have talked about it in the past. This is something that is 100% in wrestling, in sports in general, anything. This is 100% fan derived and driven.
Oh, yeah.
You talk, and we've all sat and watched interviews and seen interviews and podcasts and stuff with actual wrestlers saying, "Oh, what about this guy going here?" They all say the same thing. Good for them. Go out and get that money. You only have a certain amount of time to cash that big check and get that big bag. Go get it. And they're happy for him. Hey, man, it's, and because at the end of the day, we as fans, sure, we want to see our people on our shows do well within that show. But again, it's a business. And if working for one company,
they want to succeed.
Yeah. If working for one company raises that price tag or raises your stock enough that another company wants to hand you yet a bigger bag of money and say, come work for us, then,
exactly,
that's success.
Exactly.
Anywho.
So that also ties into, real life regular jobs as well, because I've spent a lot of time like reading about how like things in the workforce have evolved and changed over the years. Like it used to be that someone would get a job out of high school and they'd be at that same job for 30 years with the same company and retire there. And things are just not right. Things are just not like that anymore. In this new modern era, it's often seen as more useful and better for your overall success to kind of job hop, as they say, that most people will find that they're able to increase their income very quickly by job hopping. And every time you get a new job, every couple years or so, you get a decent raise rather than staying at the same company for 30 years and hoping for a promotion or getting small increment raises over the years. You're much more likely in today's world to increase your income way more by going from job to job to job every couple years. And it's just like that in wrestling. Why would we ever expect a wrestler in this era, especially, to remain at one company for their entire career? that's telling them that they need to intentionally miss out on so many other opportunities that might be out there for their success.
Mm-hmm.
I will say Nick Nemeth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And look what he's doing.
And
well, the ultimate bet on yourself is Cody. I mean, Cody is
right.
Cody has to be the ultimate story of the prodigal son. I mean,
and you never know where life is going to take
said it
you.
when Cody came back. The prodigal son returns.
Yeah.
It's
and especially now with the way wrestling is going, who says you can't go back at some point? How many people have we seen gone? Nick Nemeth is a perfect example. He was so many years in WWE. Then
Naomi
went to TNA and then came back.
Right.
Who's to say in 5 more years that Nick Nemeth is not Dolph Ziggler again in WWE?
Drew
sometimes,
McIntyre.
John, I believe sometimes that's a test. Like they kick them out of the nest because when you're in. Okay, let's just take someone that's not Sal Ruka. Well, we'll say take her for instance. She hasn't been on the independent. She's not a wrestler first. She was an athlete.
Right.
A superior athlete, and she's turning into a great wrestler, but she only knows life in the PC, in catering, where she could probably get a nice broiled salmon fillet and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like really, the champagne cocktails and caviar. But now they let these people go, like Drew McIntyre. There's someone they kick them out of the nest. Yeah. And they don't. It's like we know they're going to be back one day. Or if they might be back one day, they're going to be better for it. And like he came back, he was better for it.
Yes,
certain people come back and Naomi is another one. She was just the glow. It was just her entrance, and then the rest was okay. It's just Naomi. She's the third wheel, and hey, that's what made her the heel. The third wheel got tired of being the third wheel.
Yeah.
But but they come back and they do better. That's what I'm saying. And I expect that for Aleister Black too.
Oh yeah.
He went out on his own, but he was already but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, and also, these cases like the Lucha Bros, like Ethan Page, these are people that have worked their asses off for years, worked at multiple different companies, and why do we have a say in if they're allowed to fulfill their dream or not? Like, just because they leave AEW and go to WWE doesn't mean that they hate AEW, doesn't mean that they hated their whole time there. Like we have to, some fans, like there's a lot of us who are like-minded like we are, but some fans have to get used to this world where we're going to see people moving all around. And just because someone moves from one company to another doesn't mean that they now hate that company, doesn't mean that they, are leaving because they hate everyone there and they hate what they did. Ethan Page, I've watched him work his ass off for the last 5 years to get to where he is. And I'm incredibly happy for him that he's getting this spotlight. Obviously, I still wish he was at the show that I watch. But
well, this kid crapped himself too. Right on the show.
Of course he did.
Yeah, I know. Just like
he did as soon as I mentioned Ethan Page. So
yeah, well, I will go into it. I'm not going to do it because we're live. But anyway, we are firmly entrenched in WrestleMania season. We have roughly 2 weeks left until the big weekend that we're all looking forward to. Even though some of us from the crew that are going to be out there live. And we saw 2 very distinct
I am going to change the baby, but I'll be 5 feet away listening. I'm off screen.
Okay. Yeah, please don't do it on screen. But we saw two very, very distinctive and very popular stories take a big step forward last night on SmackDown. Of course, I am talking about we finally know what the favor is. And as I predicted, and I'm going to pat myself on the back for this. As I said on the show last week, the three-way main event night one match between Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and Seth Rollins is going to come down to be a Paul Heyman on the pole match. That's exactly what it's coming down to.
Yep.
And why? Because we found out, of course, the favor is that Paul Heyman doesn't be the wise man for Roman Reigns that night and comes out with Punk as his best friend for their match at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And that is a very interesting thing because people are already speculating who is going to screw who for Paul. Or is Paul going to screw all of them? Or both of them? Or
and then Seth Rollins is just going to sit there and laugh.
Yes. He was absolutely the court jester last night of that whole promo. But he kept the crowd entertained, and in this role, he's actually pretty good for that. Because the main story is obviously it's Paul Heyman and Paul Heyman with Roman Reigns or Paul Heyman with CM Punk.
Yeah.
So Rollins can kind of keep this wild card character, this Joker character, that he really doesn't have any ties to any of this, so he can cause even more mayhem potentially as the match goes. So it's going to be very interesting. And I'm still sorry, WWE, you are dropping the ball. If we do not see Punk at least one more time between now and Mania, and I'm a Paul Heyman guy shirt, we're missing the mark. But it very, very interesting turn, and very again, we should know better. And people that poo-poo and say, oh, this is no good, or this is stale, and this isn't going anywhere. Shut up and watch and listen and enjoy, because trust me, they're going to make it very worth our while.
I hope so.
The other piece of business was on the ladies' side, and Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair, and the promo itself was very good. And the question was, did they go off script and go a little too personal, or is that what they're doing to try to build their match? I mean, this is a championship match. It's for the women's championship. And again, if you look at who won, who lost the promo battle last night, Tiffany Stratton absolutely destroyed Charlotte Flair, who is traditionally excellent on the mic, and has more times than not, and almost all the time, is very capable on the mic. But man, I don't know if it was that Chicago crowd, which can be very opinionated when it comes to things.
Mm-hmm.
But, and Tiffany is still very new in this wrestling career. And she's had a lot of success during her short time between NXT and now. But I think where I was afraid that Tiffany was going to kind of shy away and cower in the spotlight, being in the championship match at WrestleMania against arguably, well, to me, no argument, the best women's wrestler on the planet. That's big time pressure for a young lady. And she is seemingly, I don't know how well she's being coached. I'm sure she is, but she's absolutely responding to all that pressure. She is not crumbling.
So it's interesting you say that. So, okay. I did not watch the promo. I wish Mongrovian were on screen for this. I honestly have absolutely no interest in the storyline. I have no interest in Tiffy. I'm sorry. I just don't. I don't care. I didn't even go back and watch that clip. I just have no interest.
Okay.
But it's interesting to me that you say, what you just said about it, because since I can't watch SmackDown and I catch up on the clips of what are the most important segments that I want to catch up on. And I kind of gauge, my social media feed to see like what are the moments that everyone's talking about that I should go, catch up on. And mainly on SmackDown, it's the Roman Punk Seth stuff. That's the main thing that I'm making sure that I watch. And Naomi and Jade. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So my Twitter feed last night and today, and I curate my feed pretty well. So I only see people who I actually like value their opinion. Not I don't see trolls and all that. My Twitter feed of people that I value their opinion, most people thought that whole segment sucked, frankly.
Well,
like most people thought it was bad, it was cringy, it was a terrible promo. So it's interesting to me that you guys are saying that you loved it, because that is not the consensus that I'm seeing elsewhere of people whose opinions I value.
Well, by far, was it Charlotte's best performance or promo? No, not by any means. But
I was seeing people say that about Tiffany, not Charlotte. It was a bad promo on her part. Like I said, I didn't watch it because I don't really have an interest, so I'm not really one to speak on this one. I wish Mongrovian were on screen.
Well, he's occupied.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I thought Tiffany did well, considering the position she is in, and they have to remind the fans at this point, Tiffany is going in as the champion.
Yeah.
And that it's really not and this is something that Front Row and I agreed on watching the show last night. At first you were like, oh, okay, Charlotte won the Rumble, therefore they're going to force feed us and put the belt back on Charlotte, make up for lost time that she was out with her injury and all that. But Front Row and I both agreed, I'm not sure who's winning this match at this point. If they decide to go with Charlotte, okay, yes, I think the fan base most definitely, to a certain extent, is going to shit on it. Yeah. And they're going to have to work twice as hard to get back the fans back on that. Whereas,
and that's unfortunate, really.
Yeah, it is. But also, Tiffany, especially after last night, has starting to show me that, she deserves to be in this spot. And, I'm, like I said, I can't clearly pick who is going to win. If it was straight on wrestling ability in ring, Charlotte Flair all day long. But, again, Tiffany is continuing to grow and improve and thrive, especially in this spotlight position that, it makes me just pause and wonder for a second.
Right. I will say she is definitely better than when, I first, was introduced to her.
Well,
but yeah.
They definitely threw her into the deep end of the water, so.
Right. But
you got something, they threw her in the deep end, beating Nia, getting the belt, and now...
But that's the thing is, I think the Money in the Bank gimmick worked well for her. I having the Money in the Bank worked well for her, and that was great.
I think what the problem is that there's so many irrational Charlotte haters out there that they just everything is skewed with this. Right. The promos have been a little, were a little wonky at first, but the one last night, that wasn't bad. They were really cutting into each other, but the crowd, they don't even want to give Charlotte a chance to even get a promo out. So
she was getting a Dom level heat last night with the booing.
In the hate, soak in the hate.
And toward the end of the promo, that's exactly what she did.
Well, that's what you got to do because
you have to.
They absolutely the one.
Hey,
thing
listen,
that
when you're in Chicago and Philly, you know what, or Toronto, or Montreal. You know, I mean, you're not gonna you're gonna have to do what the audience wants you to do. If the audience ain't gonna be putting up for any of your shit.
Yeah, both of them kind of did. I won't say a poor job, but they could have did a better job. They lost the control of the crowd. They were the crowd absolutely went into business for himself, which is to be expected.
And just an update, it was a messy poop. He pooped all over the place.
We don't care.
He friggin' then of course, as I'm waiting to change him, he pees on me. So
okay,
he got Papa good. So I'm sure everyone's happy out there. Neil, you're very happy. Screw you, GFY, Ezra. Who cares about you?
Yeah.
One thing.
So back on track. So I feel like this is one of the things that is probably an issue for this storyline is the amount of irrational Charlotte haters that are out there, because I'm not sure if the insanely loud booing of Charlotte is supposed to be the intended reaction. It seems like that's kind of messing up the storyline and what they're trying to accomplish here, because there are so many people that just hate Charlotte so much for whatever reason that they just can't get past that.
Yeah.
What is it with Charlotte Flair? Like, she's the first and only second generation or wrestler. Can you imagine if they reacted that way to David San Martino and I mean just everybody down the line.
I don't know what it is.
Why does she get this hatred?
Dave likes to say it's greatness hate, but at this point, it's something more than that.
It's weird. I don't know what it is.
There are so many other people that are high level.
She wasn't even a wrestler, and because of the death of her brother, she made a promise that she would be a wrestler, and now she's not only a woman wrestler, she's one of the best wrestlers out there.
But there's so many people that legit think she sucks. Like, that's just irrational.
Oh, she does? Well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But that's,
I mean,
and here's a great.
Those are people that think Ricochet puts on 7-star matches. And they love him.
They're wrong.
They're idiots.
They need to have their heads.
Sorry, Ricochet, for the shrapnel, but you deserve it sometimes.
But here's a great direct apples to apples comparison. Second generation wrestlers. Charlotte Flair, whose father was extremely popular, multiple-time world champion, considered by most the greatest to ever do it. And on the comparison, Cody Rhodes, whose father was a multi-time champion, highly successful, considered by many to be one of the best to ever do it.
Yeah.
And here Cody is absolutely adored worldwide. Not just,
but he has a lot of haters.
Yeah, she might as well walk out there with Hogan and drink an American beer. So.
Well, that's I'm not saying she needs to tank her reputation like that, but one thing, changing gears quickly. One thing we are not wishy-washy or anything about. I am loving this new heel badass Naomi. It is such a great look, a great time, and putting her against Jade is absolutely magic right now. These two are going to beat the hell out of each other at WrestleMania. And I think and not that Naomi needs it. She is well established and known to be very good across all aspects, especially in WWE. I think this is a big step forward for Jade to get out of, always having a partner, being, teamed up with Bianca lately or even beforehand. This is where Jade kind of comes into her own and starts establishing herself as she should be. And I can't wait for the match. I absolutely cannot wait for the match.
Yes.
Very much agreed. I think the character change in Naomi was well needed. Naomi's been relatively the same character, the glow gear and all that stuff for quite a while now. And as much as we love it, it was time for a change. And this is just great. The caution tape, the wild hair.
Yes.
it's just the evil look in her eye. Like it's so good. And yeah, like you said, Jade being able to step into the spotlight on her own now. I think it was a good choice when she first came in to team up with Bianca. That was a good way to kind of ease her in, have her be a tag team, have someone like Bianca, be able to be by her side and kind of help her along. But yeah, now, like you said, it's the perfect time for her to kind of step into that spotlight and shine on her own and really show what she can do. She was out for a little while. We weren't really sure what was going on with the whole storyline at that point, but now it's really kicked into gear. And I like how Naomi is using that in her promos, is saying like, Bianca was my friend. She was my tag team partner.
Right.
And you come in and you steal my tag team partner.
Yeah.
And I like where it's going.
This is shaping up to be a good old fashioned World Star hood fight.
Yeah.
I'm thoroughly expecting someone during the match to start yelling out World Star, World Star, World Star.
It's also a good clash of styles,
Yes.
So
very much so.
It's really what Jade needs. Like, she doesn't need to be going strong against. She needs to have someone like Naomi's gonna be able to get thrown around that ring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so she's a
and I like that. I like that this is a different type of storyline for women than we're used to seeing, unlike Raw. I think there's this whole trope of like that women's wrestling storylines just always center around
catty. Catty,
bitchiness.
Yeah.
And this isn't that. Like, yes, this is about, like friendship and betrayal and all that, but it's much more well-rounded than your stereotypical,
you can't just go around the bitch word, the B word. It's always like that. It's always like that. There's only, like I said it last week, Okada is the only one that should be able to call everyone a bitch. And Seth Rollins should be called a bitch.
Cody can do it.
He's a crybaby. Yeah.
Cody's pretty good when he calls someone a bitch. That's nice.
Well, well, it sounds great with his little lisp and everything, and just it's a good slap. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I mesmerized him with my brilliance. Look at that.
Yeah,
he's stunned.
Right. He's 5 months. Kind of a low bar. But to that, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And absolutely, Naomi in this case is a woman scorned, and she's going to get her payback. She's going to get her revenge, and absolutely looking forward to it. Hey, Deb, did you watch TNA Thursday night?
I did.
Okay. Did you see the end?
I kind of remember it.
The end of TNA? When someone appeared on the TNA show that has been.
Oh my God, I don't even remember.
Oh my God, this is so bad.
That's so bad. My memory is terrible. I don't even. This was 2 days ago.
You smoke too much weed.
Stop it.
Well, for those, including Deb, who didn't see, of course, TNA is pre-taped their shows and everything, but they are building up to Earthquake, which is coming Wrestlemania weekend, and
Earthquake.
Also,
Ezra's there?
No, not that.
Good one. Earthquake. Good one, Deb.
Absolutely.
I got you.
But
thank you. Good night. I'm done.
Yes. They again, TNA taking full advantage of this WWE partnership that they have.
Yes.
Now
I remember. It just came into my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll continue since
Unbreakable. Thank you, Neil.
Unbreakable. Thank you, not Earthquake. Unbreakable. Someone appeard as seemingly a challenger to TNA heavyweight champion. Say his name and he appears. Joe Hendry. And who was that person? Deb.
That was the wonderful Ethan Page.
Karate Man has returned to TNA.
He's not Karate Man. He's Ethan Page.
No, he's Karate Man. He will always be Karate Man
All
from
ego.
TNA. That's Karate Man.
Ego.
All I know is I was happy, Deb was happy, and my friend Tiffany was happy, and we're all happy.
Yes. But
yes.
again, talk about the wonderful, crazy times we live in right now. Here's Ethan Page back to the company, basically where he started to make his name in TNA as Karate Man. So therefore, he will always be Karate Man. But now,
not until he dons that headband.
Well, we still got time. We can build to that. But again, we're seeing this partnership absolutely bear fruit more than any other partnership that TNA has had with any other company, and that includes New Japan. Absolutely way better than AEW's, and now we're starting to see real mix and crossover.
Yeah.
And again, could there be a quote unquote and WWE contracted talent wearing a TNA belt? Could Ethan Page, could that exist in this universe? And I say absolutely yes.
I say absolutely yes as well. Obviously this partnership is, having success for TNA. They're bigger than they have been in years and years and years.
Yeah.
We've talked about this. My biggest apprehension still is that, I really, really loved the TNA product over the course of last year. And, they've had some people leave the roster, obviously, with the big changeover with Scott D'Amore leaving, and some people left at that time, and contracts ran out and all. And my biggest apprehension right now is just sometimes, not all the time,
right?
Not every week, but sometimes I just feel like TNA is kind of just a second NXT show.
Right.
And that's personally not what I want as someone who loved the TNA product over the course of last year and doesn't have much interest in the NXT stuff. That's my only hang up, but that's just me. Obviously it's been really successful, and I am loving seeing certain people kind of move back and forth.
Yeah. Well, I understand your apprehension, and I agree and share it with you as well. But listen, so far it's hit on all cylinders.
Yeah.
There's not many misses. So I don't have anything to put doubt in my mind that they both sides don't know what they're going to do or how they're going to do it. I think that they very definitely have plans going on.
Yeah, that's pretty obvious. One last thing before we move on quick is, like I said, just because I love the TNA product, and I love the TNA product because it was different than WWE. It was different than anything else. And some weeks I just feel like the TNA show that I liked is no longer there. Now it's just another WWE show. And if I want to watch a WWE show, I'll watch a WWE show. But like I said, that's just me.
Okay. Like I said, I share some of my opinion. I share some of your apprehension, but I also have full faith that TNA will still remain and maintain its current look and image, with a lot cooler and different people involved. That's all.
I hope so.
But let's get to what we all came here for tonight. Dynasty, tomorrow night, Leacorps Center in Philadelphia. Pay-per-view. Deb, where do you want to start?
Why don't we start at the championship picture and kind of move down through it that way?
Okay. In your main event, or we're presuming is the main event, you have
we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. You have Swerve Strickland, the challenger, taking on Jon Moxley, the leader of the Death Riders, for the AEW championship that we have legitimately not seen in like 5 months, although we have seen a very shiny briefcase that supposedly it resides in. Right. And I still call bullshit because there's no way that Marina Shafir, now that's a big, strong girl, but the way she swings around with that briefcase, that there's a championship title in it. No way. And
it doesn't even look big enough to hold that.
Exactly.
That championship.
Exactly. I think they're trying to Pulp Fiction us like, what's the gold thing inside the briefcase, which they never say. It's just you can make it anything you want it to be. But anyway. All right.
So I found it really interesting on Wednesday. Obviously there's the whole remaining confusion of the Death Rider stuff, and yes, not a lot of fans are really actually into the Death Rider stuff, but the entire title picture surrounding it has garnered a lot of interest in recent weeks.
I'm more interested in that than Moxley being champion right now.
Exactly. But so one thing from Dynamite that was really interesting to me, and I know they talked about this on Busted Open kind of, in depth, is the little backstage with Hangman and Swerve.
Right.
Hangman and Swerve have had this epic rivalry.
Yeah.
And, it seems like anytime that they see each other, they're just at each other's throats. And so they have this backstage where they're at each other, and he says, you broke into my house, you burned my house down. Well, you deserved it. I know. And then he's like, and then he shoves off the security guys that were doing a very terrible job of holding them back to begin
not
with.
Not good. They need to go to Atlas Security.
Not very convincing. They need a little more training.
They need Atlas Security to come in there and take care of things.
So he says, what did you say? And then Swerve says, I know. And so that was a really interesting moment because they kind of like, they froze, stared at each other, and then Hangman just stormed off.
Oh, right.
And Dave said on Busted Open, that was a really good way to handle it, because if you are in an argument with someone and, someone says, well, you did this to me, you deserved it. Well, I know I deserved it. I fucked up. I know I deserved it. What else do you say then? That's it. What else do you say? You don't have anything to come back to them with.
You basically just ended the argument.
Yeah, you ended the argument. They admitted they fucked up and they deserved it.
Yeah.
That's it.
But
so for them to kind of just stare at each other for those few seconds and then Hangman just storms off, that was really good because, in that moment, Hangman was like, okay, I got other shit to deal with.
Right. All right.
And then Swerve going at Renee and Renee is trying to interview him as the backstage interviewer, and Swerve's like, I don't have time for your shit right now. I'm looking for your husband.
Right. And again, they brought that up on Busted Open on Thursday. And I was like, that's it. They were storylines could be storyline, and I understand why they're doing it. They don't want to make this a we're married thing, but you can't deny the fact that they are married. And
of course.
And Renee is excellent at her job and her role in AEW. And there's but there's sometimes where you have to kind of look at like I'm out looking for your husband. And Renee's just standing there like holding a microphone, doing her job, but
that's her job,
But there has
she's not going to come at him and start yelling at him about it. That would be out of pocket for her as a backstage professional.
I guess I'm thinking at some point somebody's going to say or do something that's going to push Renee out of that pocket, or they allow Renee to push out of that pocket and say, hey, MFer, that's my husband you're talking about. To the point where she's at, and we kind of saw that before.
Yeah.
Especially
but she always remains professional though.
Right.
That's the key.
But think back to when Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston were feuding.
Yes.
And Renee, but they were doing it backstage and did something, and Renee just said, "You know what? I don't care what you do, fix this. You guys have to fix this now because I'm not putting up with it, and I'm not dealing with the both of you after all the time and everything, the history and the friendship you two have.
Yeah,
I'm gonna fix it," and pointed directly and basically yelled at Eddie Kingston, "Fix this because I'm not putting up with it." That's what. At some point, I would like to see more of that. Not
but that's also a different situation because they were longtime friends. So Renee, as his wife, is saying, like, this is someone that was one of your closest friends. You need to make this right.
Yeah.
This is a wrestling rivalry. So she doesn't, I feel anyway, she doesn't need to insert herself in the same way because she's not really involved. This isn't her husband having a disagreement with his friend that's affecting their personal life. This is a wrestling rivalry.
Right.
And I personally don't really want to see her inserted in the storyline in that way. Be professional, be the backstage interviewer. If someone makes a comment like Swerve did to her, she can make a face, be angry, be whatever. But I don't really want her to be a character in the storyline like that. I just don't. I don't want to see her like. I love the job that she does as the backstage interviewer. She always remains professional. Every time she interviews someone, like, even like we talk about her facial expressions, the thing with Harley and Mercedes from Wednesday when Harley brought the puppet out. Renee's facial expressions were great. That's what she's good at. I don't want to see her inserted as a character in the storyline as the wrestler's wife.
Okay.
Because I personally feel like that diminishes her as the job that she does if she's just seen as the wrestler's wife.
Right. I think it's a cheap pop.
Yeah.
Honestly. Okay. All right.
That's my personal opinion.
And that's fine. Because I tend to agree with it. Because you're right. If it was anybody else, I could see them absolutely going to it. But it is Renee, and we all know Renee is absolutely perfect at what she does.
Yeah, she's accomplished in her own right. She's not just Jon Moxley's wife.
Right. All right. Where to next?
Oh shit. Let me see. Let's go on to Tony and Megan quick.
Okay. This is my pick for match of the night.
Yeah.
Of course, the challenger, the Megasis, and apparently Greece is also located in northern Jersey because that's where Megan is from. But the Megasis Megan Bayne versus the AEW Women's Champion, of course, we mean the timeless Toni Storm.
Yeah.
Again, this has been a subject of a lot of debate amongst wrestling fans. Even took up a considerable amount of time on Busted Open, because Megan is brand new at AEW. I think this match is a championship match, and it is like her 7th match on AEW television. Now she has worked, she had been on Dark previously and a couple of Ring of Honor shows and stuff like that. But this is since becoming All Elite. This is her 7th match, and it's already for the championship. If she loses, does she get the same treatment as other names in the past, bigger names in the past that have gone up against the champion, regardless of who it is, and lost? Does she lose steam? And can they afford to lose steam with this new hot talent that they have? Or is it going to be another, oh, well, okay, that match is over. Now what? And then we move on. I don't want to see it that way because I think Megan is a unique talent in that this is a very big, strong, powerful girl that has a presence when she comes to the ring. Besides the ridiculous headdress that weighs like 20 pounds that she walks in.
Yeah.
But she has absolutely quickly become a force and a presence in AEW women's roster. But does she wind up getting kind of lost in the shuffle like we've seen in the past, or do they put the belt on her? It's one of the things AEW obviously is damned if they do, damned if they don't. If they don't put the belt on her, she's just going to be, lost in the shuffle. If they do put the belt, they just wanted the hot shot. So
exactly.
I don't know where to go. I know it's going to be a great match because I both know both of them are perfectly,
of course,
capable in the ring, and we all know that on the microphone at any time, anywhere, Toni Storm is absolute gold. So even in the loss, I don't see Toni losing any steam whatsoever. Toni has never been about the belt, especially with this whole timeless character. It has never been about the belt. But I don't know. So what do you think?
Yeah, it's a tough position to be in because, Toni Storm, like you said, her character is probably, most people would agree, the best character and the best storyline that AEW has had over the last year. And, Megan is, she's just incredible. So it's a tough position to be in. If Megan wins, then we have a new champion. You obviously you're going to get the people that are saying they're hot-shotting it, but that's not always terrible. I mean, look what we've seen. Look what we've seen on the other side in NXT recently. Julia and Stephanie both came in, and Ethan both came in and became champions pretty quickly.
Right.
And it's not always a bad thing to have a new person come in and go straight for the championship. And, if they didn't, then people would be saying that they're wasting her because she's such a star, So, damned if they do, damned if they don't. But, I don't know. I really don't know who I want to win. I think I want Megan to win just because I think they can do. I think going forward after Sunday, after tomorrow, they can have a better follow-up if Megan wins than if she doesn't.
Okay.
So I think that's what I'm going to go with then.
I like the idea that because Toni has always been, seemingly to me anyway, better on the chase than being champion. Especially what we saw with her and Mariah come ultimately up to Toni becoming champion again, and then putting Mariah on the chase to her till they finally ended it. Or did they? Or have they? We have not seen Mariah May on AEW television, and
we have not.
Could the glamour be a presence and again start something up completely different again? So we'll have to tune in and find out.
Yeah.
But, again,
I will say real quick. Sorry. So, Seth mentioned it in the chat about Joey Janela. Okay. So something funny happened. We don't talk about dirt sheet crap on here, and I hate to even bring this person up, but it's a certain dirt sheet person who's one letter off from being called VD. And so apparently he had said something about, he was complaining about Megan being teamed up with Penelope, and that there hasn't been any sort of explanation why they've teamed up with each other, and that the only thing that they have in common is Joey Janela, that it's Joey Janela's past and present. And I popped huge because I saw Joey retweet it and say that he actually thinks that that's a compliment.
Yeah.
Of course. If you're Joey Janela and you're seeing your past and present, like,
yeah. And they're both signed to a
that's not
major
an insult to him.
yeah. Oh, by the way, they're both signed to a major wrestling company and
Yeah.
appearing on television almost every week. So yeah,
None of that is an insult to
you know,
Joey Janela.
yeah. I fail to see a downside here,
Right.
especially if you're Joey Janela. But you know,
Exactly.
again,
So yeah, that just popped me. So I wanted to mention that.
okay, where to next?
All right. So
Well, let me get a couple out of the way that I
Okay.
want to. And just because it's near and dear to me, I'm going to go with this one. Chris Jericho, the Ring of Honor heavyweight champion, against Bandito, a former Ring of Honor heavyweight champion, and a very interesting stipulation: title versus mask. Obviously, Bandito wins. He is the new Ring of Honor champion. If he loses, he unmasks himself in public in the ring and hands the mask to Chris Jericho. Very interesting stipulation, especially given that the fact that luchadors don't unmask in public is a terrible, grave insult and shame to be unmasked or have to give up your mask. More importantly, these types of matches, especially in lucha libre wrestling and Mexican wrestling, these are like blood feud blow off matches that they put the masks on the line. So while it seemingly, and for many reasons that I won't go into, it seems like a kind of a filler match, it actually is very interesting for that fact. Just because of, and again, it's because of the people involved. We're all very familiar with Chris Jericho and his shtick and his current run as the Learning Tree, and say what you will about it. I think obviously it's brilliant. It doesn't always hit the mark, but it's Chris Jericho just doing Chris Jericho things and constantly reinventing himself. And Bandito, who is a former legit Ring of Honor champion, you know, and being able to be in this kind of a spotlight for the Ring of Honor championship, I think is very cool. This is going to be a very interesting match because Chris Jericho is good, but there is no way he can match Bandito speed for speed.
No,
Jericho is way too old for that shit.
No,
but it's going to be a very interesting match and one I'm definitely going to be watching. The other two matches I'm very interested in is this one, Kyle Fletcher and that crazy chicken farmer from Delaware. Them boys, Mark Briscoe, in an Owen Hart qualifying match. And I can kind of guess how it's going to go. Obviously, I think Fletcher's going to win, but this is going to be a great match. You know, and rest in peace, Jay. But there was a couple of banger matches between Aussie Open, Kyle Fletcher, and Mark Davis, and the Briscoes. And I don't expect this to be any different. These two, it's going to be a very physical match. And I think it's going to be very interesting. Do I see Briscoe going over? Unfortunately, no. He's not really in that role in the company right now, which is another issue I won't go into. But again, and the other one is, this one is very interesting for a lot of reasons to me. And that is, of course, the aerial assassin Will Ospreay and a recently signed All Elite Jet to Fly himself, Mr. Kevin Knight. And they had kind of a preview match on Dynamite on Wednesday. And Kevin Knight's legit. This isn't a West Coast Dojo, New Japan trained wrestler. Did very well in TNA for a time period, and also in New Japan. Again, I don't think, is he going to win? Is he going to beat Will Ospreay? No, not right now. I don't think 10 guys could beat Will Ospreay right now in AEW. But again, it's going to be an interesting match because both of these guys can absolutely go. And, credit Will Ospreay, because I'm sure he could have sat there and said, no, I want to wrestle this guy, or something else. But no, he picked the new guy to give him some shine, because he's getting some shine to be in the ring with Will anyway. And it's going to be a really good match. So
I also find this match a little interesting. I think Kevin Knight has a lot of potential to be a really good star for AEW. And I think going against Ospreay in his, big pay-per-view debut is a great choice. Ospreay was on Busted Open. Was that yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah, that was yesterday. I don't know, the days blend together sometimes. Amazing interview. If anyone didn't catch it, I don't know if it's on their YouTube. I hope the whole interview is on their YouTube, but it was a really, really good interview. They asked great questions. Ospreay gave incredible answers. It definitely showed how Ospreay is like the breakout star for AEW's future. And I think he's the best signing that they've had out of, free agency in the last, however long it's been. Yeah. He's definitely the star for AEW going forward now. I don't know what else can I say about Ospreay. Like, how much else can I put him over?
Right.
Like, he's just
that
phenomenal.
Already has not been said yet. Okay,
he's just amazing.
I have two more matches really quickly for very different reasons, and this one, Big Bill and the Bounty Hunter Brian Keith going against your current AEW World Tag Team Champions, of course, Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley, the Hurt Syndicate. And I love this match because overall, finally, we are seeing the Hurt Syndicate as we wanted to see them. Back from when in WWE. We are seeing them for what they are. These are 4 badass men.
Yes.
Period. And we're seeing that more and more because we're seeing them be involved in different storylines and different things and just continuing to be this dominant, powerful faction that literally can stand in the ring with anybody and not worry about it. And for the fact that they are both Bobby and Shelton are amazing in ring and how they do and everything. And Shelton Benjamin continues to absolutely astound me for a man of his age and experience that he moves and does in the ring, what he does and how he does it.
Yeah.
And it's all the elements that were together before, but are together now and absolutely are being presented perfectly. And,
I agree. I completely agree.
And the other match I wanted to talk about is the one I have the least amount of interest in. And I shouldn't, because
I concur.
It is for the championship, and I like Daniel Garcia.
I do too.
And of course it's Adam Cole, baby. But
do you feel Adam Cole that like he hasn't hit his after he broke his ankle? Like he was starting to hit his stride with that whole MJF storyline, and like we were going somewhere, and then it just.
But it wasn't just the ankle injury; it was all the head stuff he dealt with.
Yes. It sucks because it really sucks because he hasn't recaptured that NXT.
Yeah, not quite yet.
That NXT vibe.
He hasn't, and he's with a lot of the same guys that gave him that shine. He's still with Kyle O'Reilly. He was still, and again,
you know what? There you go. The linchpin of the group was Bobby Fish.
Stop it.
Turn your camera back off right now. Turn it off and turn off your mic.
Hey, listen, I've already been pissed on today, so it doesn't matter. You can shit on me now.
Yeah, but
So Where were we? Real quick, I want to go back to the Hurt Syndicate real quick.
Okay.
Because we don't need to really talk about Garcia and Cole all that much.
Okay.
So I think there will be a lot of implications with this match. And that's also, I think, the reason why the Jericho Bandito match is on this card, because we're seeing dissension with the Learning Tree. We're seeing dissension within the three of them. And so Big Bill and Brian Keith having this match with the Hurt Syndicate, I think there will be implications that happen during that match. Something's going to happen that ties into Jericho, whether they end up turning on Jericho after they lose. Maybe they tell Jericho, like, obviously they lost. If they lose, obviously he hasn't, been a big help to them. If they turn on Jericho loses to Bandito, so there's gonna probably be a lot of strife there where Big Bill and Brian Keith might say, like, hey, why are we listening to you? You lost. And then we have the whole MJF thing with the Hurt Syndicate and where that could go. And I think that points, MJF doesn't have a match on this card. But I think that points to that, there are storyline threads that continue through pay-per-view. We don't need to rush to give MJF a match just because it's a pay-per-view and he needs a match on a pay-per-view. We can have this story with the Hurt Syndicate keep going through each pay-per-view cycle. It doesn't, that's a good sign is, for a while, people were kind of complaining a little bit. The AEW seemed to do very strict start-stop storylines from pay-per-view to pay-per-view. And now we've been seeing things like this where there's a thread that goes through the pay-per-view. We have to wait to see what happens afterwards. MJF's not having a match.
Yeah, sometimes they storyline.
I bet that he's going to have something to do with this match here.
Right.
I bet that MJF is going to show his face in some way during the match with the Hurt Syndicate and Big Bill and Brian Keith. And, that, like, the fact that there's layers to things, that there's multiple matches that may have implications with each other because of the people that are involved. That's a great sign for the storytelling that they're doing.
I agree. I absolutely agree. But wait a minute. AEW does not tell stories ever. They're just a bunch of wrestlers doing spots. Yeah, go fuck yourself. Guess what? They are. And they're absolutely doing it, and they're continuing to improve upon it. Although, this to me, again, I want to like this match. I really do, because I like the people involved. But again, this kind of gives me the Daniel Garcia, Adam Cole vibe. They're just kind of feeding Julia Hart, which I'm glad she's getting a shot. But
it is for the tournament. It is for the Owen, though.
Yeah, I get that, but
so it's a tournament match. It's not just throwing Mercedes an opponent.
Yeah, but all right,
to spit up and chew out.
Right, but would it matter at this point?
To chew up and spit out.
Yeah, but would it matter at this point? I mean, yes, it's under.
No, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, like I said, I want to be excited for the match, because I think, again, this might be a similar situation with Ospreay and Kevin Knight, that Julia is going to coming out getting the shine more than Mercedes for this. So I'm excited.
I'm willing to bet that happens.
You would hope that.
Yeah,
you would hope in this.
I'm
match,
willing to bet that happens. I think.
If Mercedes goes over, you hope Julia gets over, and she's over anyway. She's got her solid fan base. It's just there's another one. She got injured, and the injuries throw you off momentum. So sometimes the injuries work out in your favor, and sometimes they don't. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens from here. Like you said, this is the tournament, so we'll see Sasha maybe go over, but Julia get over. And maybe lead to something down the line, or vice versa.
Yeah, but
she might actually go forward, in the Owen Cup. So.
But as we have been proven many times in the past, the pay-per-view overall is going to be very solid. It has excellent matches on it, and AEW from the beginning has done that. Regardless of what you say about their weekly television or how it's done or anything like that, the pay-per-views have always been solid. Very, very few clinkers or misses on the pay-per-views, and this one is definitely shaping up to continue that trend. And since we're now almost 15 minutes into Collision, that we can finally see if there's any other late-breaking stories going into tomorrow night. So we will end it on that note, unless you want to go over any other matches, Deb.
Nope.
Okay.
I think we're good on that.
Well, in that case, we will start to wrap this.
Wait, what did I miss while I was away? What did you guys talk about?
Oh my God. You go watch the replay on YouTube.
Yes.
I'm not watching.
As soon as this is over. So anyway,
I live this shit. I'm not going to endure it another hour.
Well, anyway, since you're wanting to get out of here and not be on camera at all, Mongrovian Mike, where can the folks reach out and contact you?
Mongrovian Mike, that's it. I'm on the socials. You see me bitching out there.
And you can see him in Long Island. That's
on
right.
Long
I said
Island,
inland,
damn it.
Long Island. At various
You can
independent
see me at
shows.
Creative Pro shows, at Victory Pro shows on Long Island.
All right. And Deb, we all know this answer, but for those who may be new or just living under rocks, how can they get in contact with you?
Well, it's right there on the screen at That's So Debonair on all my socials. I just want to give a shout out real quickly. An old high school friend of mine brought me a gift last week that I'm going to show off. A friend of his is an artist, and he got me this. It's a very lovely pencil drawing.
That is very
so I
cool.
wanted to give him a shout out.
That is awesome.
It's
Wow.
This person got her eyes so nicely. I'm gonna have to take a picture of it, a good picture, and post it. So yeah, shout out to an old high school friend who gifted me that. It was really, really nice of him. That's So Debonair on all the socials. Click the link. I'm excited for two really great shows tomorrow.
Yeah.
GCW and Dynasty.
Yes. Cannot wait for tomorrow. That's going to be so cool.
And LFG.
And LFG.
I'll catch up on that on Monday.
Yep. Yeah, I might have to as well. I am, of course, at Twisted Metal Fab on the Twitter and the Instagram. And the rumors are true, ladies and gentlemen. If you have been following the social medias, it has arrived. Ladies and gentlemen, the lab has been hard at work. It is finished. It is completed. It is much like Tony Stark, who continued to improve and refine the Iron Man suit. The AK-9K is now version 4.0, refined.
V4.
And that's a new one, so it doesn't smell like moose knuckle yet in that cavity.
Ew. You're disgusting.
Nope, it still has that new leg smell.
What's wrong with you?
But just real quick, I wanted to point out, as you all know, I have
Stop
and decorated all my legs with stickers. Of course, I always represent my crew.
Yes.
And you notice this side panel here is dedicated for now to a very special and dear friend of mine, One American Kaiju, the Florida man, Lindsay Snow. But this sticker in particular is one that she had made up a while back. Of course, anybody that knows her,
she is great.
She is absolutely amazing.
And I have my Lindsay stickers that you got me too, John.
Yes,
thank you. And thank you to her. And yeah, definitely.
But that particular sticker she did is kind of a memorial. She used to travel with her dog Celia everywhere. Oh. She was a staple at all her shows. Any of her, Celia was always with her. And unfortunately, Celia crossed over that Rainbow Bridge rather suddenly, and it absolutely was heartbreaking for Lindsay. And she decided to do that memorial sticker. And I was able to get my hands on a couple, and I knew when my new leg was going to be coming that absolutely it was going on there. So shout out to Celia. I miss you, my little potato. You were always such a good girl. And shout out to my friend Lindsay, who is probably going to be very busy Mania weekend. And we'll talk more of that. We'll talk more about that.
She should be.
Absolutely, she should be. But more importantly,
there should be a ton of wrestlers walking around with friggin' tattoo needles hanging out their ass.
There's more to that. I will tell you later. But more importantly, you can keep up with now the exploits of the most dangerous weapon in all professional wrestling, now version 4.0 at AssKicker9K on Instagram. So for myself, for Mongrovian Mike, for Debhausen, I am John in South Jersey. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we will see you all next week, or we will see you at the shows.
Thunder Tits!